Just wanted to check in with you. Recently just moved back home from my last rotation and I am bored as can be. So what did I do? I bought myself a little game called Ring on a String. You attach string to a ring and you throw it as it moves in a pendulum to try to land on the little hook. This is kind of what happens when you're waiting around for your license and you have nothing better to do. So I'm having a great time. Yeah. Hey guys, so I wanted to shout out Essilor. It's a great time to recommend transition lenses in your practice because they just came out with a new transition signature Gen 8 lens that provides excellent eye protection and transitions darker and faster than ever before. And not to mention, it comes in a variety of different colors. And with participating doctors right now, if a patient buys this lens with a Crizal anti-reflective coating, the patients are also eligible for a free pair of qualifying Essilor clear lenses. So it's a great way to increase practice revenue, benefit your patients, and show off a little bit of new technology. So you guys, let's get into it. Currently, I'm in the middle of getting a job. Roughly about half of new grads have a job locked down by the time they graduate. So I kind of want to share my story about my interviewing tips and advice, and I know a lot of you have a lot of interviewing strategy already. I'm not really teaching anything new here, but I just want to share my story. What's up, Opto fam? We're back in Glendale, Arizona, where it all started. I'm excited to say bye to some friends and wrap things up for optometry school here. And what better way of coming back to Arizona in a rental car that is a red Ford minivan. Oh, we ballin'. And guys, can we just take a second to appreciate this key? The key's right on the front there, so it doesn't jab you in the pants when you put it in your pocket. Graduation day.
So Tyler James came in.
Hey.
Leuenberger.
Dr. Tyler Leuenberger.
We did it! So guys, as we know, with any interview, you need to have your answers to your basic questions down, you know, like who you are, why did you want to be an optometrist, what are your strengths and weaknesses. That's all fine and well, but something that I really keen in on is what kind of connection can I make with the person sitting across from me. I had a job in undergrad where I was an orientation leader and I had to hire new orientation leaders and other leadership positions, and the ones that stood out to me were the ones that actually talked to me about myself instead of just the interview questions. And so obviously advice on interviews will be different in person versus over the phone. Something I try to do regardless of the two situations is, you know, break the ice with something that you can relate with. There's been times where I've, you know, tried to find the building where my interview was and it was a little bit hard to find, or, you know, if you're not familiar with a certain area. So I'll address that. I'll walk in and say like, hey, I'm glad I found the place. So, you know, I almost was running late a little bit, but I'm glad I found it. So something like that, something cheesy like that. Or if it's over the phone, with my new job here that I got back in Colorado, they were all phone interviews, and so something that I would start the conversation with, since I had a few interviews with different doctors, I would say, you know, like, hey, like I had a long clinic day and it's nice to take a breather right now. You know, something to kind of ease into the conversation before you get to the meat and potatoes of the questions. And kind of going based off of that, I think personally it's a lost art, you know, when you're working with coworkers, or at least it's a dying art in my eyes, that you address the person as a person before you ask for something that you need. You know, whether you need to talk to a technician or any other coworker in that manner. You know, I always try my best, you know, when my mind's not too much into my work, to make a quick connection, say, hey, how's it going, before you ask for something that you need. Some students that I saw in my rotations, you know, they would walk into the special testing room and ask a technician or a teletechnician like, hey, I need this right now, before saying, hey, how's it going? I think that's really important. I mean, I don't think you need to know too much about the people that you work with, you know, especially if you don't talk with them very much, but something as little as, hey, like, hope your day's going well, goes a long way before you ask anything of them. So guys, as far as general interviewing tips, I would say number one is to keep your answers informative but concise. Sometimes we get into a long-winded answer when we're nervous. Nobody really wants to hear that. So if you can think about that in your interview, you know, it can show the employer that you have an organized mind and that you can work efficiently and accurately. Number two, I would say is, you know, buy some time with tough questions. You know, I think naturally when we're nervous, we kind of want to answer questions as quickly as possible. But if you're given a situation where, you know, they tell you to describe a tough obstacle that you've had to overcome, you know, a lot of us don't always have that at the ready. So if you can buy time by explaining your thought process, it kind of gives the employer an idea that you don't, you know, make rash decisions and you take time to think about your steps before you make a choice. So I think that's really important. It really shows a lot. So for example, for me, if I was given that question, unfortunately I was diagnosed with arthritis in my back last year. It kind of threw me off. I didn't really know if I'd be able to get a good night's sleep for a long time. So, you know, how I overcame that was physical therapy, different postures and positions during the day can help me prevent waking up in the middle of the night. But right now, I know how to handle it. It's not a big deal, and it's pretty much just like brushing my teeth. So if you can explain the positive more than the hardship, you know, that shows that you're a more positive person. So guys, number three and number four would be more behavioral. Number three is to make plenty of eye contact. It's so important that you make plenty of eye contact because it really shows how confident you can be and that you're comfortable making a good interaction. Number four would be obviously to smile, but also shoulders are a big thing. You know, if I'm talking to you like this and I'm giving you my answers, it might look like I'm a little bit nervous or afraid of my answers, but if I'm dropping my shoulders, I'm relaxed and I'm talking to you, you know, we're having a good interaction, good conversation, and there's no room for nerves to come into play there. So guys, number five and number six are ways to end an interview. Number five would be to ask plenty of questions at the end. Somebody once told me that if you can get the interviewer to talk more than you, then that'll leave a lasting impression in their minds that, you know, this person really cared about what I had to say. And so if you can ask about, you know, maybe a relatively personal question about the interviewer or about their story of how they got to where they are, or about the company, not only does it show that you care, but it also shows that you're a good listener too. And number six would be to try to end the conversation by mentioning something personal that you shared as you walk out, because that'll really solidify a connection too. So guys, I also did some research on Forbes and Business Insider about interview tips, and something that stood out to me was, when do you schedule the interview? And they recommended that you schedule the interview for 10:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. And I know that sounds a little strange, but if you think about it, you know, employers are winding up for the week on Monday and they're winding down on Friday, and they're not really in the mindset possibly for interviewing new people. Also, they mentioned to not schedule the interview right before lunch or right after lunch, because right before lunch, employers are thinking about lunch, and right afterwards, they might be a little bit tired from what they ate. So that's just what they said. That's kind of interesting to me. Something else they said was to show your palms often, and if you're at a desk, you know, put your fingers together. I know it's kind of awkward and weird that I'm doing it. I'm not at a desk right now, but they said that helps as well. And then also they mentioned expressive speech with modulation in pitch and volume and a minimum of noticeable pauses boosts credibility and enhances the impression of intelligence. And I think even just by making vlogs like this, I think that I'm most successful when I practice my answers, because, you know, when I have it down, I know exactly how it's going to come out. But when I'm, you know, not prepared, it doesn't really always come out that way, and I can't think about my pitch volume and tone of voice. So if you have your answers ready for those standard questions, or even questions that are a little bit tougher, it'll come out better. So guys, just to recap my story, I actually had 3 phone interviews and 1 on-site interview. So just be ready to talk to a lot of people if need be. I don't think that's very typical, but it can happen. And my first phone interview was with the CEO, and he actually, most of the interview was him telling me about the practice, so I think it was a two-way street to make sure that we were a good fit for each other. So don't be afraid to have a couple questions at the ready to fire back and ask about, certain things about it. Not only does it show that you're interested, but that you're attentive. And so I'm just sitting around right now waiting for my license and credentialing to get through, and hopefully they'll start me pretty soon here. So guys, please use me as a resource. I just went through all this very recently, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. And just remember to stay bold, passionate, and hungry, and we'll see you next time.